Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. I'm going to try to do a quick scene here using some of the concepts and techniques that I've shown in previous videos. Now, I'm going into this. I haven't practiced this scene or anything like this, and I've pulled a bunch of pads out using some, I'll be going into some colors that I haven't used before in various combinations, and even this composition right here. Someone asked me if I kind of plan out and kind of rehearse these videos as I'm going along, but I really don't, and it's really not on one hand, it's not really a great way to do a video, as you can imagine, but nevertheless, I mean, this is kind of the way that I work anyway, so in a way it's, a really realistic version of what I would be doing. The only thing is on these videos, I just try to rush it a little bit more, because, I don't know, these videos tend to run long, and my battery for my camera tends to overheat at about 15 minutes. So anyway, what I'm doing right now is I'm stamping ledge, and this is 054F, and the first couple videos I'm talking about overlapping a lot, and that's what I've been doing here. It's just this stamp right here works just like the cloud cumulus that I've, talked about, I don't know, it seems like, 10 minutes worth of content so far on some of these first 11 videos that I've done so far, but I've overlapped, probably about a 1/4 inch into the previous impression. When I'm stamping it underneath, I'm probably going about, roughly a 1/4 inch into the stamp above it. But as you can see, I mean, like I said, I know the stamp right here, I designed it, and I know where one point ends and the other one begins, but, when you stamp it out like this, I can see that rock is the same one, but, I mean, who cares, I mean, as long as it blends together, by the time you layer a lot of different tones down there, it won't look so symmetrical, because I'll, focus light and shadow in different areas, but the main thing is that it blends just fine. I think it looks okay just like that. Here's a different type of cloud. It's kind of what they would call a mackerel sky. Otherwise it's known as an Altocumulus cloud, just to bring in some different textures. This is a number 10 blue. In another video I showed some different, bringing in some different colors into the impressions themselves, and why don't I run some of this pink on there, where the pink overlaps blue. Pink and blue will mix to form kind of a violet tone, and we'll see what that looks like. So a lot of variation just from two colors, where pink overlaps blue a lot. It'll be more purple, where it's more predominantly pink in some areas. It'll just read more as pink. So, it just depends on how much of this I put on. This is kind of a streaky looking image, so I'm kind of putting some streaks here and there. And overlap. Maybe I'll go for more of the pink on this one. See what that looks like. Just keep overlapping it, alright? Looking at this now, I think for the horizon, I don't know if that's the horizon, but the lower portion of that, I think I'm going to go a little bit lighter. I'll go with this Salvia blue, which is lighter than this one, which is called light blue. It's really not that light blue, it's more of a medium tone. Alright, now, I have this area in here, I have this little narrow strip that I want to get into, but this is, of course, wider than that, so what I can do is I can just take my mask right here, and it's enough of a mask to cover up what I need to. Again, I'm going to have a little bit of those rocks showing, so I don't get this kind of halo effect. Alright, let's go for another inking of it. Mask off. So we have our land and sky. That's often what I recommended to people do when I was teaching beginning of workshops. A lot of times big question is, I have all these stamps and where do I start? And I usually say, pick out some kind of land element and pick out some kind of sky element and start from there. So we have land and sky. I mean, that's just using 2 stamps. I can use, a whole bunch of other ones, but, kind of the basic concept is there. This is going on with a Adirondack Lights Aqua. I'm going to start blending in some tones. I'm going to start defining my light. Where's the light going to be shining in this scene? Where's the light coming from the sky? Whatever I keep, the white of the page, or just lighter and don't touch it too much with the darker tones, that is going to end up being the lighting being represented in the scene. One of my professors, my art professor, used to always say that, don't try to replicate something that a camera can do better. And he used to like seeing his paintings and whatnot, his artwork, and just in general, as being more like a stage, like you're a set designer, on a stage, as opposed to being a photographer, going out and taking photographs of something, and your photograph being something, that was a smaller piece of a greater whole. He used to like seeing artwork as kind of more of a stage unto itself. And I think that's a pretty good approach. I've always kind of remembered that, and I try to bring that into some of my scenes. So in other words, as I'm doing this, some areas are remaining light, and I don't know that that's what it would look like out in nature, but a set designer or a lighting designer on a stage, he's directing the viewer's eye wherever you want it to go, just by having certain areas light and other areas darker. And I think that's a pretty good approach to take, that way you're not always kind of trying to chase something, that's a little bit easier to capture, when you just kind of let it happen. Alright, so I've left some areas kind of light in here. I'm going on with my next tone. It's a little bit of a deeper blue. And I'm running this basically wherever I've laid that first color down with that first really light blue. I'm just kind of going over. I'm just reiterating that same placement with a darker tone. Alright? And as this gets darker, you can kind of start seeing some of the lighting effects starting to take hold, and they start to be defined a little bit more. I have certain areas in the sky that are remaining light, certain areas that are getting darker. And what I like to do is I like to leave some other areas on the landscape light. So what you have is light source, in this case the lighter areas of the sky, and you have the reflected light on the landscape, reflecting the light coming from above. And anyways, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, I think I'm going to do a video on lighting, but basically what it is you have an area that's, dark up top, lighter in the sky somewhere. Somewhere there's a little bit of darkness going across the middle, and you have a lighter area below. Here's another video that I did before. You have dark, light, dark, light, dark. I mean, now naturally, you can get more, I don't know, the word's not complicated, but, lighting can be a little bit more complex than that. But you know, and when you break it down, when you look at all the scenes that I ever do, that's kind of basically what's going on in just about all of them. All right, now I'm going into a gray right here. This down right here on these rocks, I've been using blue. So that's my blue tip right there. I'm just going to switch around and go with a clean tip for my gray. Usually I have a different tip basically for a different family of colors when it comes to these stylus tools. You know, I'll have one that's kind of designated for my red tones, another one that might be designated for brown tones, blue tones, pink tones, purple ones, etc. I mean, and a lot of times, I don't know, the way I clean these off, I just dab them into a wet paper towel or something like that, but, you know, to tell you the truth, sometimes I don't even do that. I just leave the color on there. I just dab it off a little bit, throw my tools in a big freezer, kind of like a Ziploc bag, and I just keep it like that, so it ends up being kind of like pads on a wand, you know, an ink pad, in some ways. Inevitably, I don't know, all these plaids, you know, seem to end up turning kind of black anyways, and that's when I'll go and I'll clean them off, but I don't know, they're fairly resilient. Just don't let these pads completely dry out on you, especially if you're in a very kind of arid area, you know, where there's not much humidity. You don't want these things sitting around for months and drying up. That's when they can get a little bit brittle, but if you kind of leave them moist or, you know, somewhat protected, they'll be nice and resilient and bouncy. This color right here is a Memento Desert Sand, and I don't know, right now I've been laying down all cool tones. Blues, that gray right there is kind of a neutral gray, but for the most part it's, you know, it's a cool composition right now. Pinks, purples, blues, and I like to kind of extend the temperature range of my scenes out, and this is a way to do that with a little bit of this tan. It's blending nice and smoothly. Why not use some of this up in the sky as well? That kind of brings a little bit of a warmth to it, a little bit of a glow. It's almost Distress Ink Peel Paint. Always test it out, you know. Get a feel for it, see if you want to use it. Use it in a little area and see if you like it. I'm thinking about this. This is going to represent, I think, granite or some sort of stone like that, and why not, you know, bring a little bit of the color of lichen into it or something like that. You know, that little moss grows on there. It kind of warmed it up a little bit as well. All right, now, I might put a few more layers of color into it normally if I was stamping this out, you know, not in a video like this, but let's rush this a little bit. Let me move into a little bit of black so I can really kind of define the shadows a little bit more quickly, you know, than adding on, you know, 2 or 3 more colors, but I certainly could do that. But anyways, what I'm doing is I'm darkening my edges with this, and that's kind of framing things off a little bit more. And this black, I'm not worried about getting these shapes everywhere on this card because I have a good foundation of lighter tones. Okay. Maybe darken up the edges a little bit more too. Okay. Good tones running through there. We have some variations, some lights hitting it. It looks like it's, I don't know, turning in space a little bit more. Let's hit this area with some foreground elements. If you like what's going on in the scene and you don't want to cover it up too much, you can go with something kind of airy like this. I've used the reeds in other videos. This is just kind of a, you know, this leafless limbs large tree. Basically, it's a good foreground tree. Now, I usually have this coming off the page like this, alright? But let's say A lot of times, you know, you walk around nature and whatnot, and you have these trees growing out of cracks. You know, these little tiny cracks in the rocks sometimes. I'm guessing that's because, I don't know, a seed is able to, you know, cling to a rock sometimes better if it's, you know, lodged in a crack. You know, you wouldn't believe how, see these pine trees sometimes even growing out of these little tiny cracks or relatively small cracks in a rock, and you wonder how it got there, but I don't know, maybe it has a better chance, like I said. Okay, now I've masked off some of these rocks right there, and I put that